The 49ers still working for the 2024 NFL draft, adding some pieces. Eric Saubert, tight end. How does it change the outlook for the 49ers in the draft? And what about all the latest 49ers mock drafts? Which ones do we like for San Francisco? Coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love the airs and love it when you are subscribed. Hit that thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Drop us a comment on YouTube. And, of course, you can find us everywhere you find your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Apologies for getting the first pod late to you this week. I have travels, doing family stuff. Also doing big things behind the scenes here. As you can see, I'm wearing the official Locked On polo if you're watching on YouTube, recording our 2024 Locked On NFL mock draft special right now as well, which should be out soon. Niners making picks, trying to make trades in that. A lot of fun with me and Croc putting together our draft board and getting ready for the mock draft special, which will be a 6-part series out very soon here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we'll let you know when we're ready for that one. Croc, Niners signing a tight end. Eric Saubert, veteran tight end. They tried to sign a tight end from the Detroit Lions that that restricted free agent dollar amount and contract was met by the workout. Clearly, the 49ers want a tight end. They signed Eric Saubert. It's a short-term deal. It is a 1-year contract for Saubert, who is more of a blocking tight end than a pass-catching tight end. He was a 5th-round pick out of Drake University in the 2017 draft, and another famous tight end was also taken, Croc, in that draft, and none other than George Kittle in the very same round. Niners made the right pick in the draft, going Kittle over Saubert, but decided to go Saubert as well as a free agent signing here. What do you think about this signing for the 49ers, and do you think it has any impact on the 2024 NFL draft?
When we initially texted about it, I kind of looked at it as, well, not even just for that, the initial signing that they tried to do, but obviously the Lions met that offer. And then now you sign a guy, and to me, it seems like maybe they don't like everybody that they have in-house. Like, to try this hard to, even if it's fill the Charlie Warner role, but kind of find that like legitimate tight end too. I think they should be prioritizing in the draft, but you think that this means, I think they kind of have the guys that they like now in-house. Maybe they see if one of the lower draft pick guys, or Latu, I mean, he didn't play last year, but maybe one of those guys that they drafted last year takes that next step and he develops into a tight end too. But man, I've kind of been talking about how I would love to see the 49ers really attack the tight end position, not with a 3rd round or late comp 3rd round pick, not with a 6th or 7th round pick on a guy kind of a tweener out of Oklahoma, a guy you feel like can come in and make an impact to where you have a 2 tight end set with Kittle, a rookie, and you do all the things that you can do with the rookie, almost like you do with Kyle Juszczyk, like that type of caliber of a guy. So I would love to see him draft a guy, but you're kind of telling me, nah, that's not what's going to happen.
I clearly they've wanted to address the position. So I think signing Eric Saubert to a 1-year deal doesn't really change if they might like a guy in the draft. But what I think they're telling us is that they're trying to bring in people so they don't have to draft a guy early. So they have that position pretty well set, because if they thought they were going to draft a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round, maybe even the 4th round, would they be trying that hard to sign a free agent before the draft even happens? So that's why I think it's telling us that they're going to go away from tight end in the draft, at least early, at least they're not expecting to draft a player that they expect to play super early. And both of the guys they tried to sign and now have signed are good blockers Y tight ends, true Y inline tight ends too, which is the type they're looking for right now. So the someone in the chat called and said some idiot just trying to fill out the 90-man roster. No, they didn't sign him because he's an idiot and they don't think he's going to make the team. They're just trying to put together what they think is a football team. And Saubert's been an NFL player. Now he's bounced around. I think he's on his 10th NFL team. Like, he's been around the block a little bit. But I think what the 49ers hope is that Cam Latu pulls an Aaron Banks and is a legitimate player and wins the job for tight end 2 in year 2. And I think it's a need. The 49ers need to have a tight end, but what they need more than signing a guy or drafting another one high is the guy they already drafted pretty high in the late 3rd round last year to become a tight end 2, and for Willis to become tight end 3. I think that's 49ers really want. And I feel like all the positions, the defensive line, now they've added a guy at tight end. I think they're telling us what their plans are in the draft is to not draft the positions they've added in free agency. That's the vibe I get from what they're doing right now.
I could see that at the edge position. And, I've been high on a certain edge rusher. Everybody loves Chop Robinson. I like Darius Robinson. I don't expect him to go edge. I think Robinson, as much as I've had a draft crush on him, especially the more I thought about it, because you asked me, do you have a legitimate draft crush? And I'm like, I don't know. Robinson, he's probably that guy for me. But, man, when you bring in Gross Models and you bring in Leonard Floyd, I think the likelihood of the 49ers going to edge, slim to none. But tight end, especially we're talking about at the pick 31, I feel like that could potentially be more in play, even if they went and signed a veteran free agent and they were looking into another guy. I don't think that moves the needle enough to where they're saying, you know what, if there's a tight end that we have really high on the board, he's the highest player on the board, right, on our draft board, best player available on our board. No, we're going to pass on this tight end because we signed this free agent that's been on 10 teams.
Yeah, you're not going to not do something because you drafted or because you signed Eric Saubert. I don't think the board is going to fall in a way that a tight end goes at pick 31, period. So I don't think it's in the cards unless Brock Bowers falls to 31, and that's not happening either. Maybe if you start talking about pick 63, pick 94, but you also have a clear starting player there. And that's why I think this just means the 49ers might address it in round 3 if there's a guy there. But I don't think they're trying to draft a guy early at tight end. And I could be wrong there. And I think that's what they think about the defensive line, as you just mentioned. But they still could, is the other thing, is Leonard Floyd is in his 30s. He's not a long-term move. Yetur Gross-Matos is a 2-year deal. The interior guys aren't on long-term deals. So I think they could go in any direction still if the board does fall that way. But in my opinion, the 49ers free agent work tells us that they're expecting that they're going to try to draft an offensive lineman early. They're expecting that they're going to try to draft a cornerback because those are the positions that clearly they could have addressed and did not in free agent.
Real quick, I'm looking up Leonard Floyd's contract. I believe that him and let's see. Yeah. So Gross Matos and Leonard Floyd, now again, guaranteed money. Is it a true 2-year contract? But they both are 2-year contracts.
Yeah. And a 2-year contract can become a 1-year contract really quick. From what I remember of I don't have the information in front of me. From what I remember of the contracts and what was guaranteed, it sounded like Yetur Gross-Matos' was closer to a 2-year deal, and Leonard Floyd's could easily be a 1-year deal. That's what I remember, and I could be wrong there. But again, we know the 49ers like defensive linemen, so they could absolutely add one early.
They can both be 1 year. I'm looking at Gross-Matos' contract right now. Is worth up to $18 million over 2 years, but he has 12.39 guaranteed. They might, between a signing bonus and his salary, it could potentially be close to that, to where even if they let him go next year, they don't get too big of a dead cap penalty.
Yeah. The first year guaranteed, the second not. And then if he goes and if they cut him and they sign somewhere else, it's kind of like the if there's offsets or whatever, it's kind of like the Sudfeld deal where he's got a couple million guaranteed, but they didn't really worry about that because he signed somewhere else, and then that would take off of the guarantees. Yeah, a lot of ways that it can structure it to make it more like a 1-year deal. But a lot of moves for now and not as many moves for the future, I think. So the draft is about the future. So best player available, draft the guy. I don't think it affects it, but I think they told us what they expect is going to be the best player available, which could be an offensive lineman or a cornerback in the first couple of rounds of the NFL draft. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Next, Croc, I want to go through, and at 49ers.com, they compiled a list of the latest mock drafts and some of the results for the San Francisco 49ers in those mock drafts. Let's go through there and see if we find a scenario that we like better for the San Francisco 49ers in a couple of weeks here when the NFL draft comes around next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. So many of us spend so much time in our lives wishing we had more time. And the question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your specific schedule. All you have to do is you fill out a brief questionnaire and then you get matched with a therapist. It's that easy. And if you don't jive with your therapist right away, that happens sometimes, and that's okay. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Croc, taking a look at some of these mock drafts and some different ideas around the media landscape and different
real quick,
yeah.
Have you done a lot of mocks? I feel like this year, I think the only mock I've truly done is you and I live on this. I see a lot of guys pumping out a lot of mock drafts. How many have you put together throughout this draft season?
2.
Okay.
We did one together on the podcast. And by the way, I'm about to do one live Tuesday night. Check it out on the new Overtime with Brian Peacock. I'm going to do a live 7-round mock draft for the San Francisco 49ers on the new YouTube only channel. So go make sure you're subscribed there and check that out. But I did one like 3-round mock draft in November or something like that. Just looking ahead at the class and what the 49ers might want to do. And then we did one here together. And then I've done one that's a full 1-round mock draft that we talked about on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show for the entire league. So I've done basically 2 real mock drafts so far in this season. But yeah, that's why I'm on the new YouTube channel. I'm doing a 7-round 49ers mock draft because I think you get your YouTube channel taken away if you don't do a mock draft, right? So I got to make sure I get one on there before I get demonetized.
Right.
How many have you done?
I think just the one that you and I did together.
Okay.
But I see a lot of people, they got these mocks and they're pumping them out, all the time. And I think it is fun. It helps get interaction between, your content, the fans and things like that. So I'm just surprised I've only done one to this point, and it was a joint one with you.
Let's talk mock draft. Has there been a mock draft that you've seen where you're like, okay, this is what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan might do?
To be honest, I have not paid much attention to like just random mock drafts that I've seen. And most of the time I see them, it'll be someone will post a mock draft and they'll have like 3 different mocks. And it's like, which one do you like the most? And it's like, you know what? None, because I'm not looking at any of these. But I have heard, we had someone message us and say, man, Darius Robinson, Croc, like maybe you guys should stop hyping him so much because he's seen some people mock him. And when we're talking about legit media members, the Mayhawks and guys like that mocking, and not Mayhawk, but I'm just throwing the name out there, but mocking Darius Robinson to the 49ers. I'm like, you know what? That's a mock I can get behind.
I would have no problem with Darius Robinson to the 49ers. I think he's one of the players that could go in that range and be in play for the 49ers. I think it was Mel Kiper recently this week at some point, and he's a pretty plugged in guy. He said Darius Robinson will go in the first round. Like it's mark it down. It's done. He will go in the first round. So if that's the case, he better go 31 or 32, right? Because or he's going to go a lot earlier than that because there's only one pick after the 49ers in round 1.
Right. Yeah, if you're the 49ers, you don't have much wiggle room when you hear he will go first round. Now I was like, okay, where? And does he last to 31? Because
dude, and the league is starving for defensive linemen. You remember last year, Will McDonald to the Jets?
Yeah.
People are talking about him as a fringe first round player, much like Darius Robinson right now. And he went like pick 20, right? He was pretty early. I think it was top 20. I think it was even in the teens. Wow. So
that's Will McDonald matter of fact, out of Iowa State. I mean, I saw some things that was having to go a little bit later than first round. So
right. Yeah.
That's why sometimes, and I like when I see this, that there are certain players that draft Twitter and social media is much higher on than the scouts and front office execs. That there's times where it's a big difference with how they see a prospect.
Oh, and the draft media, and we fall into this, we get into groupthink, and everyone kind of talks about these prospects, and the board kind of becomes one large consensus draft board for the way most of us look at it. And these are 32 teams with 32 independent draft boards and their own style of scheme and their own coaches that are giving input on these picks. And I say it all the time, and I'll say it again. Like it's the draft is bonkers. The real thing, it's always so much crazier than any mock draft you see. The real NFL draft is always crazy. So don't fall into that trap of thinking, oh, no way this could happen. You should never say that about the draft because some of the wildest stuff will happen when it all plays out in the draft. So don't forget that. How about this one? And shout out to Lindsay Polaris of 49ers.com that compiled some of the latest mock drafts here. From NFL.com, Chad Reeder did a mock draft. It was a 3-round mock draft and had the 49ers making a trade, Croc. And I like this one, not only because they got a player that we both like, but the reason that this team was the team they traded with. And I think this is about as high up as the 49ers could get. The 49ers moved up with the Miami Dolphins to pick 21 to draft Oregon State offensive tackle Talise Fuaga. And he said, quote, I believe one of the top tackles in this draft will fall out of the top 20, and Fuaga's incomplete workout numbers, along with some teams projecting him at guard. And by the way, he's, if you're looking for a left tackle, he's probably a right tackle only, even if you like him at tackle too, which is fine for the 49ers, might not be as fine for some of the teams in the top 20. He said Miami needs mid-round picks because they're short on those. So the 49ers send a late 3rd and a 4th round selection and also get a 6th rounder back from Miami to make the numbers work there to secure an immediate starter on the right side of the line. So they move up, now don't have a 3rd round pick in this mock draft because they sent it to Miami to go up to pick 21 to draft Talise Fuaga, and then they pick Georgia corner Kamari Lassiter, who might be more of a nickel corner in the NFL due to his long speed at pick 2. Or in round 2 at pick 63. What do you think about that combo? Trading the 3rd rounder to get up and get Talise Fuaga and going corner Kamari Lassiter in round 2.
If you're telling me you're trading up for a guy that you expect to be a day 1 starter, I'm all for it. What I'm not for is drafting a guy because you feel like this is a position of need, but he's not pegged as someone who's going to day 1 beat out 49ers right tackle McKivitz or beat out Feliciano at guard. So I'm all for it. If you feel like, Fuaga, which you and I, we really liked Fuaga. But if that's a guy you feel like you could trade up for and you get him, but you lose a 3rd round pick, but this guy's going to be a day 1 starter, I am all for that.
I like that scenario. You don't get a late 3rd round pick. The Niners have not been amazing drafting with those late 3rd round picks anyway. So, if that's the next Ty Davis Price, the next Danny Gray, the next Ambry Thomas, the next Tarvarius Moore that you use to go up from 31 to go get your starting right tackle and Talise Fuaga, who I have no doubt Kyle Shanahan's going to love because he's a butt kicker in the run game. I like it, man. I like it. And we don't, one thing we do as fans too, is we get a little too wrapped up and want to hoard those draft picks. You know, it's like, Niners have 3 4th rounders. Do they need to move down 5 spots into the top 2nd round because like, oh, this guy's not a 1st rounder. I want to trade down 5 spots to get an extra 4th round pick when you already got 3 of them, and then you lose your 5th round option, and you're still going to draft the same guy you would have taken at 31. It might not be worth it. So I do like this scenario a lot for the 49ers. I prefer to trade one of the 4ths and not the 3rd to try to sneak up even in the 3rd round and get a guy too that and potentially had 3 starters. But man, to go get that guy at right tackle, offensive tackle is that important to move around and make sure you get your guy. I'm on board. All right, next, there's some more mock drafts from ESPN and The Athletic and CBS Sports, and let's see what those scenarios are. See if we like them better than the trade a 3rd rounder plus to go up all the way to pick 21. You know, they have a good line of dialogue with the Dolphins too. I think that's a team they could potentially work with to move up. Let's see if we like a scenario better than that. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. And remember, prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And I loved using Gametime last baseball season. Go catch a Giants game. It's Friday night. You got some time off. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go see the ball game. I'm going to run down to the stadium, to the ballpark, and I can get my tickets last minute. I can even get killer last minute deals up to an hour after first pitch on Gametime. Killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets or concert tickets, comedy tickets, whatever sporting event, whatever theater event you want to see near you. Go to Gametime and download the Gametime app and take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Let's go to Field Yates' mock draft for ESPN. He did a multi-round mock, a 2-round mock draft. He had the 49ers moving up as well, a projected trade with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we know they have a line of communication there. They did a trade last year to send none other than Trey Lance to Dallas. And here they have him going up to pick 24 and selecting Georgia offensive tackle Amarius Mims. So we see a lot of this offensive tackle late round 1, trading up for an offensive tackle here in 2 drafts, and then going tight end Theo Johnson, Croc, out of Penn State in round 2, pick number 63. So this is kind of the scenario you were talking about with maybe a tight end early. The 49ers clearly sniffing around tight ends. Maybe they're not done.
See, now that's something that I can get on board with. Theo Johnson, big tight end. Give me someone that I can look for in the future, because George Kittle, and he played very well last year. I don't know. He comes off to me as someone, sometimes you see a guy just abruptly retire. We saw it with Barry Sanders. We saw it with like Calvin Johnson. We've seen it with Patrick Willis and some other guys where they play at a high level, but because of the way that they play, they just randomly is like, you know what? I'm a little beat up. I'm a little tired of this. I'm just going to retire. And I could see George Kittle, as much as it seems like he loves that. Like, is he also loving potentially being able to move on to the next chapter in his life, being like a WWE star or something?
You saw his Pringles branded Crocs boots, didn't you? And you said, this is a guy that might be on his way out.
I did not see those.
Did you see his shoes at WrestleMania?
No.
So he was at WrestleMania, and he was wearing Crocs boots that I didn't know existed. They had like little wing looking. They looked like they had wings on them. Also, they had cup holders, from what I could tell, on them, and they were all white up past the ankle. But then the collar at the top of the boot was Pringles. They were Pringles branded Crocs boots. I don't know if I can trust a human being that puts that on their feet and goes outside, Croc.
How much did they have to pay him to wear those?
I hope he made a lot from both Pringles and Crocs to put those on and wear them. It was actually, if anybody could pull it off, it was there you go. If anybody could pull it off, it was George Kittle. And I don't know if you can put the boots in sport mode though.
Not sure you can do that. I got my Crocs on right now. I wear them all the time. I have a bone to pick with Crocs. One, I feel like why haven't you reached out to me? Like I messaged you guys. We got to make something work. But they got these new Echo Storm. They're kind of like Croc shoes. And the ones I want are sold out. So they can get him some Pringle styled Croc boots, knee high, Mary J. Blige style boots, but they can't get me the Echo Storm that came out because they're all sold out in the color I want. It's ridiculous. Crocs, come on.
Yeah, Crocs, come through. Be a sponsor of the podcast. Be a sponsor of Eric Crocker, brand ambassador himself. You're gonna sell a lot more Crocs if you got Croc. You did. Didn't you do the quarterback pro day in Crocs? You did.
I did not do the
in Crocs.
I was kicking in the Crocs, not the pro day, but
you kicked field goals in the Crocs. Underrated kicking shoes, right?
Very underrated.
Next one, this is from The Athletic. Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle out of Arizona, going at pick 31 to the 49ers, saying, quote, the 49ers could get some help for their offensive line in the form of a versatile tackle / guard who can offer immediate help as a run blocker while he continues to improve in pass pro. So that's what they say about Jordan Morgan to the Niners at pick 31. Then going defensive lineman out of Oregon, Brandon Dorlus, someone who has met with the 49ers, someone I could absolutely see in a day 2 pick for the 49ers. And then is this a wide receiver or a tight end, Croc? Florida State wide receiver Johnny Wilson is an interesting name that I haven't seen connected to the 49ers. But if he's a converted tight end, now he probably wouldn't be a Y tight end like Theo Johnson or Eric Saubert are. But round 3, pick 94, wide receiver Johnny Wilson out of Florida State.
Johnny Wilson, big guy, fluid. He doesn't come off as a Kyle Shanahan type receiver, with as tall as he is, being 6'7", 235, 40. He actually ran well. He actually had a really good, it was like a 3-cone or L drill. Like one of those was really good. And I'm like, oh man, you might like that. But I think just the way that he wins, he doesn't catch me as being a Kyle guy. Unless you add 15 pounds to him, he's 250. And you say, all right, you're going to be a tight end, we're going to put your hand in the ground, then I see a lot of value with drafting him. I
like him as I like him as a tight end as well. And according to Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who, by the way, the Beast comes out on Wednesday, Brugler said that teams are split that he's talked to. Some of them, half of them say he's a wide receiver, half of them are looking at him as a tight end. So there you go. Maybe the 49ers are one of those. CBS Sports mock draft latest. Offensive tackle Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma to the 49ers at pick 31. In round 2, coming back with LSU defensive tackle Mason Smith. And then in round 4, pick 93, tight end Cade Stover from Ohio State. This is our least favorite so far. I can tell by your highlights, and I can tell by our past conversations, because we haven't talked a lot about liking Mason Smith. I actually like his teammate, who's more of an undersized pass rusher in Mekhi Wingo at LSU, a little bit more. Mason Smith's a little bit longer, more prototype build, but I like the pass rush ability of Wingo a little bit better. Might be a round 4 guy for the 49ers. Cade Stover, good player, good prospect. I think he would fit what the 49ers are doing. And would be a nice fit there if they didn't spend 2 draft picks on the tight end. I hate the idea of picking another tight end after drafting 2 tight ends last year, Croc. Got to be honest. And
we got to draft a tight end high. Like if you draft him high, then I'm not lumping him into the same type of viewpoint as the other guys.
Cam Latu went 2 rounds higher than George Kittle.
But then, okay, they knew right away that George Kittle was George Kittle. Right? Like they said, okay, Vance McDonald, we're actually going to trade you for a 2nd round pick. Like they got a good pick in return for Vance McDonald. But they were so convicted by whatever they saw right away from George Kittle that, okay, we can move off of a legit starting tight end. With Cam Latu, it can get a lot better. But it couldn't get much worse with how he was covered during his rookie. Maybe you have the yips, a lot of pressure. You're trying to learn the offense. You're having the drops. I understand it. But I don't think he did anything that says, okay, if we have an opportunity to upgrade the tight end 2 position, we're not going to draft it because we have Cameron Latu.
And then Tyler Guyton, we're out on it even at 31, right?
Yeah.
He goes late first round a lot, but you and I both didn't love the tape. He plays upright. Even though he's a former tight end, I expected to see more athleticism from him. There's times where he looks athletic and other times he looks kind of clunky. I don't think he's got like a killer mentality either that Kyle Shanahan would look for. I just don't like the fit for the 49ers, even though this is kind of the area he'll probably go. So there you go. Just trade up and get your guy, I guess, right? Is that what we get right now, Croc?
The 49ers roster, and then you still have picks. You talked about having a bunch of fourth round picks. So you have picks to address certain things. But if you're going to get a guy that's going to play for the 49ers, it has to be the guy, not a guy. So definitely, if you have an opportunity, move up for the guy that you feel like can come in and play on a very talented roster. And if you don't think he's that guy, then I guess you can stay pat, but then you're maybe just drafting a player that isn't necessarily a need. How are the 49ers going to get better? Like, that's the big question for me. Like, getting better, being better than you were last year, being better at certain positions, and is to get better at certain spots, to have a guy that's going to come in and make an impact, you likely are going to have to trade up for him.
I will say also, though, that the draft is about the future, and I don't want the 49ers to be so short-sighted that they're not getting the best player that's going to make them the best long-term and not trading so much that all of a sudden now they're behind the 8 ball. Guys walk, guys age out, and all of a sudden you have a lack of young, cheap talent to build around in the future too. So you got to have a little eye on the future and an eye on right now at the same time. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Which mock has been your favorite? Let us know on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209, or drop a comment on YouTube. Croc and I back later tonight, actually, a little Winky Wednesday action for your Wednesday audio only listening pleasure. Talk to you then, right here, Locked On 49ers.